Hello everyone and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today we have two desktop PCs on the bench, pizza box type format systems that were both saved from e-waste. That's right, e-waste, where all these computers go and steal all of our memories by being completely torn down and recycled. Well, guess what? We have two of the machines on the bench today. Really excited to go through these with everybody. Let's get right to it. And here we are with system number one on the bench. And this is definitely one of those classic computers. I have never owned one of these. I have never used one of these. I know very little about these. I'm being completely honest here. And as a side note, I have no idea if these two computers being featured today even work. The whole purpose of today's video is to go over these just to see what's inside them, what kind of condition they're in, and see if we can even get them to post. If we can. So the first computer is an IBM Personal System 2 Model 55LS. So I don't know exactly what the nomenclature is in terms of the models. Like I said, when I really got into computing with IBMs, they were really around the 486, 386 when it comes to kind of the ThinkPad line. But when it comes to the desktop line, I, again, know very little about. So on the front here, we have what seems to be in very good condition. The overall general condition of the computer is pretty darn good, other than some yellowing, which is to be expected over all these years. So we have what looks like a removable kind of bezel here. I'm not seeing a floppy drive in this computer, so my thoughts is that this is kind of where the floppy drive would go. And then over here, based on the ventilation and the light, would be what I would imagine would be a fixed hard disk. Again, not sure what's in this computer at all. We have not opened it up yet. And over here, we have what looks like a power button, and it's quite chonky. Very, very hard to push up and down. Some of the images I saw online have a red button, a blue button. This is a white button. Not sure if that makes any difference at all. Probably not. But again, just wanted to call that out. On this side here, we have what looks like a key lock. Ideally, we would have a key. We don't. No idea what that, where I could get one. And then we have what looks like a missing screw on this side of the system. We'll keep on going around here. And so on the back of the computer itself, we have, it looks like a regular power connector here, which looks like there was a sticker around it for some reason at some point, not sure. We have some IBM engraved, kind of engraving here, which is pretty neat. Then here we have what looks like the power supply ventilation, which is also good to have, obviously. Here we have some regulatory information that seems to be stamped on the back here of the machine. We have what looks like to be additional breakouts. Not sure if that would be for audio or not, but yeah, anyway, we have those there. And then down here, we have what looks like PS2 connectors. It looks like the image of a keyboard here, an image of a mouse here. We also have what looks like a parallel port, an LPT1 port. Over here, I think this is a COM port of some sort. I'm not sure what would be in these systems because it is missing quite a bit of pins. But then again, not all the pins necessarily are active or have a use. So definitely look into that as well. And then over here, it looks like a 15-pin D-sub connector for a VGA. Again, not sure what these systems came with. And then here we have what looks like 3 breakouts, and it is populated. One of them is populated here. So I don't know if you can see that. I'll move it over here so everyone can kind of see that on camera. So it looks like we have FCC Class AC manual 16/4, and then it looks like a 9-pin connector there that we have. So I'm going to be doing a little more in-depth view into that. On the other side here, we have ventilation. Lots and lots of ventilation, may I call out. Okay, so it looks like we do have a screw over on this side. I'm just going to remove that screw right away. And so we can get that, yeah, there we go. Odd combination. It looks like almost looks like a Phillips, but it's not. It's not a flathead either. So I was using a flathead because it does have a slot on there. Okay, let's see if we can get this removed and get a different camera angle into this system. Okay, and here we are with the top cover off of the computer, and here we are seeing the first time I'm seeing, at the very least, the inside of this system. And yeah, I mean, my general kind of overview when I look inside is, it's quite clean. I'm impressed. I expected a system like this, given its age, to be quite dirty. So we have a power supply here. So it's interesting switch design in the front here. When I activate the switch, it has this kind of bar going across, which activates the switch on the power supply in the back of the power supply. So definitely an interesting design. Specifically, if these plastics start to become quite brittle, I could see how that could cause some difficulty later. Then again, I'm sure the engineers didn't expect these computers to still be around today. So we have the IBM power supply here, which shows that it's a 90 watt max output power supply. And the date code here is 91, what I'm seeing on the power supply itself, so 1991. So, okay, let's keep on looking through the computer here. We have what looks like a hard disk drive, but obviously not a IDE by any means. We have this large edge connector that's going through with what looks like 4 individual ribbon cables, or it's a ribbon cable that's broke out into 4 sections. And you can see how it's kind of wrapping around to this kind of riser card here, which we'll go over in a moment. So over here we have the IBM model WD-L40S. And down here, it does say, let's see here, it does say 40 gigabytes. So it looks like a 40 gigabyte, my goodness. I wish 40 megabyte hard disk that we have installed in this machine. And then we have what looks like this kind of caddy that holds the hard disk in place. And then to the left here, we have an empty bay that I believe, like I mentioned before, that a floppy disk drive or potentially another hard disk could potentially be installed here, assuming that you have the correct rails and what have you to fit in this area. Okay, so moving forward, we have looks like memory installed here, and I'm going to remove some of this. Just be very careful doing so, just so we can have a better view of this. But it looks like we have a stick of memory here, and the sticker says 4M on it. So I imagine this is 4 meg of memory, and it looks like it's going to be 72 pin that's installed in this machine. And then we have the power supply connector going to the motherboard, but we're kind of limited with our view here as well, just because of this kind of setup going on. So I'm just going to remove that just so we can have a better view. Just pulling up on this kind of edge connector here. And oh my goodness, those are quite stiff, those cables. So I want to be very careful I don't accidentally break anything inside that, because I have no idea how easy it is to get replacements for this stuff. I've never worked with an IBM machine. I've worked with 386 computers, obviously, no problem. But when it comes to these sort of systems, I've only read about them. I've never really done any sort of deep dive into them. So this computer here as well, we have this kind of card that's installed. Not sure what it is. We're going to take that out just to kind of give us a better angle here. Okay, so I have that screw removed from the back of this, from the back of the chassis here. Let's get it kind of arranged here and see if we can remove this card. I'm going to be very careful because the edge connector is kind of, there we go, or the riser card is kind of very, very loose in there. All right, we have some of these plastic parts on the card that's mounted to the card. Not exactly sure what they're for. I mean, they are branded IBM, but they're kind of not attached to anything. So I don't exactly know, unless they were meant for another system and then put in this computer, not sure. So on the card itself, it says, let's see if we can see it on the camera. It says IBM 9314 is what's on this chip here. We have date codes of 1990, 1991 on both of these. And I'm just looking to see, we have 91 here, 51 week. And I'm seeing here the same thing on this chip. So my understanding from what I'm seeing here is that this is a token ring network card is what this is used for. So interesting. I don't have any experience with token ring, I will tell you. I'm an Ethernet baby. But still, it's interesting to see that this computer is populated with one of these cards. So yeah, it's just very interesting to see. I'm gonna have to do some research on this. I have no idea how rare these are, or if they're put in museums or what it is, but it's probably could be just a run-of-the-mill network card like we consider some of the PCI network cards or ISA network cards today. Okay, I'm just going to put that aside for a moment. We're definitely getting a better view of this computer. And over here we have this riser card that has a cable plugged directly into it. Let me just look. Okay, so I'm just kind of getting the orientation of it because it doesn't seem to have any sort of keyed cable connection here. But I'm looking at this and it looks like it goes to the speaker. So it looks like this riser card controls the speaker output. So interesting for sure. Usually you see that attached directly to the motherboard. All right, I'm going to pull this right out. I believe it just kind of comes straight out. There we are. And there's our interface on the motherboard itself for the riser card. So looking at the riser board itself, it looks like, because that's the way the interface is, and to my understanding, this is very proprietary to IBM, the MCA architecture, so micro channel architecture. And so, I mean, it almost looks like PCI, but it's not, obviously. So we have two slots here on the riser card, plus this other slot that's a little longer. And so I took the time to look up some documentation on this machine just to see, exactly what some of this stuff is, because I haven't seen a lot of this in my years. And I believe this last one, and keep me honest in the comments, but this last one here is meant for an auxiliary video input. So therefore you could use a different type of video card, proprietary again for the interface. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's in pretty decent shape considering the age of the computer. And yeah, no, it's really exciting to see. I mean, there's a little bit of marks on here on the board. It looks like some, I don't know what's it called, mold or discoloration on it, but yeah, definitely want to get this cleaned up. Okay, let's keep on looking at the board itself. So you can see that the power supply is coming down and plugged in. Again, very proprietary to IBM. And then we have an extra slot here, it looks like, for our RAM slot, so for additional RAM expansion. And from what I read in this one pager here, it says that this is expandable to 16 megabytes of RAM on the channel. So definitely good to know that. So continuing on, it looks like we have a fuse on the motherboard itself. I don't know if you see that, but yeah, that's interesting. I don't remember ever seeing a fuse on the motherboard, but the more protection, the better, I suppose. And then continuing on here, it looks like an IDE cable, but it's a 40-pin connector here on the motherboard. And I imagine where there's no floppy drive, but it's literally right here, that I would assume that this would be for the floppy. And my other assumption I'm making here, because I'm not seeing any other power going anywhere outside of directly to the motherboard, outside of the PSU. So my assumption here by looking at this is that the hard drive, and then assuming the floppy drive as well, is powered via these ribbon cables. So I'm missing, obviously, a cable as well as a floppy disk drive. So definitely something when we go to do a restoration on this computer to get that, see if we can source the parts for that. Okay, then here we have what looks like a Dallas chip, a DS1220AD. Date code is 91 here. And here we have a Dallas DS1287 real-time chip. Again, I have a few of these. These are date code 96. These are also dead. We have date code 91. There's a couple of things you can do with this. You can use Necroware's type adapter. Very, very awesome project that he created that it's socketed as well by the looks of things in this board, which is great. But essentially what you do is you pop this out. You get a different type of adapter that you build via his kit. You pop it in and you're good to go. You just put a coin cell battery in it. As I've done on this channel already, there's a hack that you can do. You Dremel two areas of this chip so that you can solder on two leads, and then essentially on the side you would have a coin cell holder. Plug it in the side there, and ultimately when you have that all hooked up, it keeps the real time, it reactivates the real-time chip, because there's embedded inside this chip, there's a coin cell already that's installed. So definitely, that's why I have these spares, just because essentially if I have run into systems that the real-time chip itself is bad, I have a replacement, then I can also modify these chips as well. But again, to each their own. You can either do it that way, or you can get different adapters. I recommend Necroware's because it's such a common one and works very well. Okay, so let's keep on going here. So we have a couple more chips here that says AMI on there. Now, I don't know if that's the BIOS. that's here or not. Again, I'm not familiar with this chipset, with the board. I'm just going to keep on looking through here to see what I see. I have a couple, looks like a couple clock oscillators here. Keep on going. We have, looking at the capacitors, and the capacitors look to be in excellent condition. I mean, a lot to be said for this era of computing. And then continuing on, there's not much underneath this side of the board, underneath the chassis holding in the drive cage here. But continuing on, I see a couple of different 32 megahertz chip here, as well as a 14 megahertz chip here. This is what I imagine would be a coprocessor here. So it says ZM60 slot. That's, I believe, would be a coprocessor. And then we have an Intel chip here. What's this? So we have an Intel, it says here, 386SX16. So the 32 megahertz on this chip here gives us the 16 megahertz on the processor here. So this was no doubt, if this is a 386, this would be a 387 optional chip, math coprocessor you could put in. So yeah, definitely cool to source one of those to see if we can get some performance out of this and we can get this computer going. But yeah, I mean, overall, condition-wise, this looks to be in fantastic shape. We have the power supply, which, you know, I haven't tested any of this. We're going to test this together. And I have no way, other than plugging it in, poking around with a multimeter. I'm just going to do this on camera. But over here, you know, everything looks to be in good shape. I really hope this hard drive just boots up and everything works. Now, with the real-time chip, it's probably dead. And as a result, I'm not sure if these boards will actually boot without a working clock battery or not. And, you know, if that's the case, we're going to have to do that in a future video because I don't have any handy that are modified, and to do the modification takes a little bit. So that's something that we can do in a future restoration, but just setting the stage because I'm not sure if this will boot or not. Okay, so everything looks to, again, everything looks to be in good shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to reassemble all of the things I took out here, which was not a whole lot. And again, I don't know a lot about MCA, the microchannel architecture for these. I just don't know. So I don't know if that's something, you know, I think, again, it was proprietary to IBM. I don't exactly know how popular it was. It obviously didn't take off that much. So I'd be more happy to find an original drive for this for the floppy. And barring that, if I'm not able to find a floppy drive, I'm sure there's something online that you can get an adapter to be able to connect going from the 40-pin interface here to the back of the floppy that would carry power that would allow you to do that. Okay, and then here is that very stiff and brittle, it feels like, connector here to the hard disk. So that just slides on nicely there, which is great. And then we'll get our speaker connected as well. If my memory serves me correctly, this was like this. Okay, all right, so we have all the connectors in by the looks of things. I think it looks all good. Let's get the bench all kind of rearranged here and see if we can get this system fired up. Okay, and here we are all back on the bench. And to be honest with you, I have not plugged anything in yet outside of the monitor keyboard. I have no idea if this is going to work. I saw the power cord out. We're going to see it all together. Is this going to go on fire, blow up? I don't know. We're going to find out here in a moment. But I just really hope we get something out of this computer to at least give us some hope that we can restore it. Power's plugged into the power supply. I'm not seeing or hearing anything bad. We'll flip the switch. And nothing. Do one more time. And nothing. Let me just do another double check of all my connections. Okay, and I tried a different power cord. I tried to make sure, or I made sure that it says 115 volt in the back and the switch here, which is what it is for our power grid here. And I have also removed the edge connector here that we had installed just in case that there was something grounding. I also removed any sort of peripheral devices just to be absolutely sure, just to test out the power supply itself. So I powered it back, or I plugged it back in, tried a different outlet on the power bar, turned it on, and nothing. The power supply literally is dead. And I've also removed the connectors from the motherboard because the more I did it, the more I wanted to be absolutely sure it wasn't something grounding to the motherboard. And I also checked the fuse itself, and I'm not seeing anything on that, any damage to the fuse. It does look to be in perfect shape. And so I know that sometimes that these power supplies require a load. I mean, ultimately, having it plugged in when we did and having this still plugged in to the edge connector, should have been enough to put a load on this power supply. And, it's cold to the touch. There's no issues. There's no smoke, nothing going on. This definitely warrants a complete teardown of the power supply to see if we can get this going. This is one I will invest time into just because of the age of the computer. And I'm not sure how readily available these power supplies are. And quite frankly, even if I got a replacement one, there's no guarantee that it's not going to do the same thing that this one's doing. A little shame. I was hoping that we get at least some sort of post out of this computer. My understanding as well from these computers, based on the limited knowledge I have, not having the Dallas chip energized so you can function. I think they rely on this. These computers do. The other thing that I think they require is a startup disk or a. You guys have to keep me honest in the comments, but just to initialize it, assuming that maybe you don't need that. Maybe the computer will start right up with the fixed disk here, the 40 megabyte hard drive we have. Again, not sure. I'm not very familiar with these. So this is why I do this channel. I mean, we're preserving these pieces of hardware. So I rely on everybody in the community to help out through this. So if you have comments about what steps to take next, I don't have an easy way right now to test this. My multimeter's not here at the moment. I lent it out. I'm going to take this apart, this power supply. I think that's the next logical step to see if we're getting any voltages on any of the rails. It does say it has plus and minus 5, plus and minus 12 written on the top of the sticker here. So, I mean, it should be pretty easy to kind of test out to see, and maybe it's a bad capacitor inside or something else going on. So we'll test that out. System number 1, fail. But we have a direction now. We know we're going to test the power supply out. Once we get that going, then we can determine what we're going to do with the rest of the system. Let's move on to system number 2. And here we are with the second system back on the bench. So we have the digital Venturus FX5133. I don't know if that's indicative to what could be in here in terms of a CPU, like a Pentium meaning 5, 133, not sure. We're going to find out here in a moment. And overall, this computer is in pretty decent shape. There's a little bit of rust on the computer and lots of scrapes and scratches on the top. But in terms of dents, there's not a lot on here. And you can see definitely some different colorations and shading. There must have been some stickers on the front of this computer at one point. But again, lots of yellowing going on. So retro bright would be really nice to do to this computer if we decide to restore it. So in the front here, we have, it looks like a power switch here. It's pretty easy to push in and out, not like a big, AT type power supply. So I imagine this is ATX type of format. And then we have what looks like a power indicator and a hard disk light indicator LEDs there. This is just a very little tiny little button here. And I think this is kind of like, by the way it's clicking, it looks like a reset button of some sort, especially if it's in this kind of power area. That would be my assumption. Over here, we do have a floppy drive in this computer, which is nice. And we also have an optical drive as well. Not sure as to what it is, the speed, etc. We have a spare 5.25-inch bay here as well, if required, and it looks like some ventilation. The other thing I noticed on the front of this computer is these two little breakouts here. There's nothing populated, but it does have molded into the case here. We have what looks like a microphone and a headset. So that's where they would be populated if this computer came with that option. Okay, let's swing around the side here. And just looking at the condition of the case, I mean, it's pretty good shape from what we're seeing here, outside of, again, some of the scrapes and scratches on the top of the computer. All right, let's look at the back of this system. Lots and lots to talk about here. Okay, let's get into frame. There we are. Okay, so we have our power supply here. Hopefully we'll have better luck with this computer, at least getting it turned on and posting. But then it is set to 115. Just wanted to be absolutely sure that we are set correctly and not 230 volts, because that would be a bad day. And then over here we have our, it looks like additional expansion capabilities. It is nice, though, to see that they are populated with the covers versus being empty and left out blank. And then over here we have what looks like a sound card of some sort. Not exactly sure till we take it apart and look inside. We have what looks like a modem here. It says GVC on the back of it, WS-5614 PSL modem, dial-up modem that's in here. And then on the bottom here looks like kind of like our motherboard plate here. So we have what looks like a printer port, keyboard PS2, mouse PS2, VGA, and 2 COM ports. So we have COM 1 and COM 2, so that would be our serial ports. So that's really, really good to see. And then over here we have the model number of A as an Alpha 73WW is the model of this computer. Okay, let's take the computer cover off and get a better view of what's inside this computer. Okay, and we're back, and we have the case off, the cover off. So let's go from top to bottom again here as we go through this computer, just kind of give it an overview. First general impression is, though, it's quite dirty inside. There's quite a bit of dirt and dust bunnies, and they're all not welcome or invited to the parties. So if we decide to restore this system, we definitely need to get that all cleaned out, completely taken apart and cleaned out, because if we're going to do that, it deserves that. So for a hard disk here, it is an IDE interface going to what looks like an edge connector on the riser card here. So it does show a Quantum series 3.5 inch series. So it says 2,110 megabytes AT. So that's a 2.1 gigabyte hard disk looks like in here. So it is kind of putting this in the Pentium era, I believe. And then we have our optical drive. Not exactly sure what it is in terms of an optical drive. We'd have to do a little more disassembly to see here. And then over here, we have an edge connector here for our floppy. So we have a cable that comes off of that. It's on the first interface is how it's connected. And then it goes over to the floppy drive on the back here. And then we have our power connector there as well from the power supply. And then, of course, we have one for a 5.25 drive if we chose to install one of them in this system. Okay, so we have a sound card over here. Not exactly sure what it is. I'm going to take it out, though, because I want to see if we can get any sort of indication as to what it is. It's pretty straightforward. Nice thing about the newer style, this is newer compared to the system we were just working on. I mean, pretty standard stuff by this time. So we have MMWR Pro 32-3D PNP, so plug and play BP. Not exactly sure exactly. It just says Wave Rider 32. I'm not sure, again, not sure who makes this. We have Aztec. There we go. We have Aztec chipset here, Aztec Systems. And seeing what else we have going on here. The chips, again, are all quite dirty. We have a Samsung chip here. It looks like we have a secondary IDE. It says CD-ROM interface, which is nice to have on these cards, and it being ISA is also awesome. It looks like we have an audio cable connector here that would go to the back of the optical drive itself. So yeah, it says Aztec and then Wave Rider 32. So it's a WR Pro 32-3D. So I don't know if this is a good card or not. I've always used Sound Blaster myself all of my computing career as best I could. So again, I'm not sure exactly if that's good or not, but if you know, please let me know down in the comments. All right, so we have another interface card here, and it looks like it is PCI by the looks of things. So let's pull this out here as well. And this is the one I believe is the modem. Yep, there we go. Nothing, to write home about, pretty run-of-the-mill. So nice thing about this, again, being what it is that it is a coin cell battery, so no risk of leakage there. We have a VRM slot here that looks to be populated, probably with a blank card here. So you pop this out here, you can pull this out. It's probably just for protection. That's all it's serving right now. So it's good to have that. So you could probably put one of the VRM interfaces. I believe Necroware was experimenting with that as well and made his own card. So you can actually do different type of chips and have more control over what you'd put in terms of a CPU. And then over here, by the looks of things, and I'm touching all the chips, and I should be using the anti-static here. So we have an S3 Trident chipset here. So it looks like that's onboard video is controlled by the S3 chipset here. We have an SIS motherboard chipset. And then over here, we have a couple of chips that looks like they're soldered on the board and a couple of expansion. I imagine this is the VRAM that we have as part of the motherboard. And I believe that's probably because they're so close to the S3 chip to give more video memory if you wanted to populate those. And then we have what looks like 6 bays here, 6 modules of RAM, and they're fully populated. Not exactly sure what they are in terms of memory. I mean, I can take those out and look at them, but if you notice here, these are all the plastic edges here. And I mean, a lot of people say, in the comments, we'll take it apart, look at it, and what have you. The less I'm messing with this, the better, in my opinion. Because, the metal ones are one thing. But I've broken a lot of these off, and not because of force. I am very gentle with doing these things. But unfortunately, when the age of these systems, the more you touch these plastic ones, because of the age and how brittle the plastics are, they snap off. And one will hold it in place if you're lucky, but you don't want to get into the world of where you're going and messing with these just for the sake of messing with them. I definitely want to see if the system will post. Now, when it comes time to actually do the cleanup of the system, I will be removing these and doing a proper cleanup of all the sockets, of the chips themselves, and what have you. So I just want to be sure that I call that out. That's why I'm not removing them right now. If these were metal, I'd have no problem just flopping one out just to look at it to see what it would be. All right, the other interesting thing we have here is a coast module. So the coast module is basically cache on a stick module. So these are, it gives you additional cache, so 256K usually. And then we have what looks like a fan, which is just caked the front of the case. Look at this. That is all the wonderful dirt and dust in the front there. I'm just going to put that right in the garbage because I don't want that on the bench. But yeah, so you can see that the airflow, there's an exhaust type area here that is blowing air in, I believe it is, over the fan, over the heatsink. So it's it's a nice kind of design to have that airflow in this area for the processor. So the riser card itself does have the 2 ISA interfaces as well as 2 PCI, allow you to do that. And then on this side over here, it's interesting because I'm not seeing it. It does have the 2 kind of expansions there. So I'm not showing or not seeing anything on this side. So I'm not sure if there was some sort of bonus type expansion you can go here, or a different type of riser card that would allow you to expand on both sides. I'm not sure. Or if there was a motherboard that expanded past this to allow additional interface. Or maybe they use this case in a different design, this chassis. So all the different options, you don't know until you start to do a bunch of research, but it's interesting to see those there. Okay, so I'm going to get this all put back installed. Yes, I'm putting the modem back in just because it's there. But yeah, I'm just going to get this all back installed and see if we can get the system fired up here. Because, yeah, I mean, we didn't have luck with the last one, but I'm just really hoping that this power supply will at least give us a little faith here. So let me get this all put back together and we'll get this back on the bench to see if we can test the system. Okay, and we're back on the bench, all set up here with our keyboard, our mouse, our trusty HP monitor. And again, I'm using these type of monitors especially for these testing, especially where we're logging back and forth. It's just CRTs are beautiful, but not practical when you're trying to do all these things on camera and record and try to get the refresh rates and all that stuff. So, because I've received a couple comments on that, so that's why I use the monitor here that we have. Okay, so you can see the dirt that I was talking about in the front of this computer. It is just caked. Definitely deserves and worthy of a cleanup, assuming that we can get this computer at least posting to give us some hope. All right, I think it's good to test. So I plugged it in to the power supply, the power cord to the power bar, and there were no puffs of smoke or anything, so that's a good sign. I'm going to hit the power button and see if we're able to get the system posting. So we have power. And we have post. Let's check the VGA cord. Okay, it's interesting. We're getting some yellow writing on the screen, but we'll just leave that for now because we have post. Okay, so I paused it there just for a moment because I want to see what we have in the computer here. So it shows here it is a Venturus FX 5133 version 1.07, copyright 1996, Digital Equipment Corporation, so DEC, and then all rights reserved. So we have 640K of system RAM, plus we have 48 megs of extended RAM. So the memory that we have installed is 48 megabytes of RAM. Again, nice that it is posting because then we're able to look at it without doing any damage to those plastic clips. Okay, UMB, upper memory block, I believe that stands for upper limit segment address. System CMOS, checksum, bad run setup. Because the coin cell's dead, right? I mean, it's not working, the backup battery. All right, we're not going to resume right now. We're going to go to F2 for setup. It says default values will be loaded because it doesn't know what to do. Okay, I'm not loving this yellow thing going on here, so give me a few minutes. I'm going to try out a different VGA cable, see if we can get this changed out. Okay, we're back, and much better quality color. It was actually loose in the back of the monitor, so shame on me. Okay, so it is currently 1988, just so anyone wanting to know what the date is, January 1st, so Happy New Year. Uh, but you can see that the date is obviously wrong because we don't have a working clock battery that's in here. So disk A is 1.44 megabytes. Then it says here IDE adapter none. It says auto fix disk, and so it did detect it. There we go. Look at that. So I just hit enter, and it automatically detected our 2.1 gigabyte hard disk, which is really good to know because, you know, hopefully that boots into something. So we have nothing. Let's see if we have an IDE adapter. No. So I'm just seeing if it has anything else. Okay, yeah, look at that. I just went on the slave for auto type fix disk and hit enter, and it detected as a CD-ROM drive. That's excellent. So we'll keep that on there. So boot options, summary screen, setup prompt, quiet boot, floppy check. So this is all good stuff. This is pretty standard run-of-the-mill stuff, nothing fancy. And our system cache is 604K, and then our extended memory is 47 megabytes. Okay, under advanced, it says warning. Oh my goodness. Setting items on this menu to incorrect values may cause your system to malfunction. Well, you know, with no battery, I'm not worried about it saving anything. Okay, so under integrated peripherals, we have mouse port enabled. We have our parallel port resources listed, serial port listed as well. Plus, we can change our parallel port mode depending on the communication you want going through your parallel port. Diskette controller is enabled. Under the, let's see here, PCI devices, it just gives us different settings. So it gives us basically the ability to go in here and tweak settings based on what our specific application is and what we're trying to do. So under security, just your standard stuff under security, what you want to lock, if it's password enabled, etc. Under boot, we have diskette drive, then we have our hard disk, and then our CD-ROM drive. I generally have disk, CD-ROM, then hard drive, but it's fine for what it is because I have nothing to put in that right now. And then we have our exit. Okay, I'm going to hit exit, and we're going to save exit and see if this boots into anything. So it talks about our 256K SRAM, so that's our coast module. Just going to pause that for a second. And it shows all of our information all here. That's excellent. So it's nice. It gives us the summary screen. I'm going to hit enter. There's our CPU. Pentium 133 with a coprocessor installed. I'll hit enter. Starting Windows 95. We have Windows. Working digital system. Our second system is fully functional so far. So this is no weird noises come with the hard disk, which is wonderful. And then, you know, the memory seems to be working fine. The processor seems to be working fine. Let's just get into Windows and see if we can go a little deeper into the hardware and see what lines up here. Oh, Jolene. So we'll just hit escape for now, bypass that. And if there's any sort of personal information on here, I'll obviously skip through that. Oh, all right. Well, the hard disk just made an interesting sound, but still ticking away here, which is good. Okay, so we have our good old ball mouse here. I just grabbed it in my bin. It's the Sony from our Sony Vaio video. So we're right in the device manager here because it did show the person's the ownership information on this. So I'm just going to bypass that. Okay, so we have our CD-ROM drive. We just have an ATAPI CD-ROM. It's not giving us much more information than that. Our disk drive is our generic IDE disk type 40. So that's what it detected it as a 2.1 gigabyte disk. Then we have our NEC floppy disk, just generic drivers using for that. Our display adapters, there we go. So we have an S3 Trio 64V installed, which is pretty cool. Then we have our regular controllers. That'd be our floppy disk and our hard drive, plug and play IDE controllers. That's all good. And then, so it's interesting. It's picking up the sound card. Looks like the AZT2320 PNP IDE controller. So I believe this is the one that is on the sound card itself. And then, of course, we have our primary and secondary IDE controllers. So under modem, we have our Motorola SM. So I believe it's a software modem, 56 PCI speakerphone modem. That's what's detecting it as. But that's that GVC that we have in here. Under network adapters, we just have our dial-up, nothing fancy. And on our sound card, there we go. So our sound card, it seems it is an Aztec 2320 plug-and-play audio device. MPU 401 support as well. Our wave device for voice modem is installed as part of the modem. That's right, because that modem had the two jacks in the back for the speaker and for the for the audio there, so it's really good. Okay, so that's all there, which is pretty cool. So again, we have a fully working operating system here. You know, everything seems to be working pretty darn well, to be honest with you. I'm not seeing anything outside of that little click I heard from the hard disk. Not sure if that was just because it hasn't been used in a while. Not sure. Okay, let's go through here. So we have a few things installed. Heroes of Might and Magic's installed. Well, I say it is, but it looks like it's missing some icons here, so it's very possible it's not. SimCity 2000 installed. My goodness, that was a good game. So we have different Printmaster Gold installed. Just really brings back a lot of memories when you see computers like this. But yeah, and we also have Microsoft Office installed. I'm just going to load up Excel just to see what version. So we have Excel 2000. So Microsoft Office 2000 is installed on this computer. And you can't have a computer without Clippy. Oh, hey Clippy, how you doing, buddy? Long time no see. Okay, so that's excellent. All right, I'm going to close that off for now. So I would say that this is a success to say system number 2 is fully functional. Let's go to our outro. And here we are back on the bench with our 2 beautiful desktops. And, you know, 1 out of the 2 systems working, I still think that's pretty good considering both were getting ready for the junk pile. You know, this first computer, the IBM Personal System 2, I've never owned one, so this is exciting for me. Having a non-working power supply is where I am leaning towards as to the issue. I have a lot of great support around me, a lot of great support for the channel. We'll get that solved and definitely get into a way of seeing if this computer will post. And then ultimately, I'd love to get a floppy disk, an original one if possible, but if not, we'll, I know there's modifications out there to get this. And as well as, I think there's a bezel that you need to replace, obviously, for this. I don't know if it's a 3D printable item or if something that we're going to need to locate as well to be able to get a proper floppy disk installed. But outside of that, you know, I'm really hoping to get this computer up and running because, again, I've never had one of these. And my goodness, wouldn't it be awesome to play some of the old classic 386 type DOS games of that era. But again, having a 386 16 with 4 megabytes of memory and a 40 megabyte hard disk, this opens up a lot of potential for nostalgia and a lot of potential for getting this up and running. I'm pretty confident we'll be able to do that. And then we have the star of the show, the digital Venturus FX5133. It did not disappoint. I mean, again, you can't judge a book by its cover in this case because, I mean, it looks pretty run down. And, you know, the system was able to post immediately. And we were able to determine it does have a coast module for the 256K. We have 48 megabytes of memory in this computer, Pentium 133, Windows 95 installed with a 2.1 gigabyte hard disk. I strongly believe this is a system worthy of getting restored. And, you know, I hope you guys had a good time in this video reviewing these 2 computers. I do this occasionally as I get systems because I really want to show everybody, you know, what it's like getting something from e-waste and just turning it on and you don't know what you're going to get. You have no idea, but it definitely inspires at least me to look at these and see what we can do. It's a good challenge. It's a fun challenge. And I love preserving these systems as opposed to just getting thrown out. And I hope you do too. And I hope you enjoy the content on the channel. And if you do, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. Hit the notification button, change it to all. You'll be notified of new content such as this. Please leave a comment down below. There's lots of comments I expect from this video, specifically around the IBM Personal System 2. Definitely want to hear from you about some suggestions or if you think, you know, what experience you have about this. I respond to absolutely every one of my comments. Love the interaction on the channel. Always making new content. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.